Hey guys, welcome back. So now we're jumping back into Moon Knight and getting caught up at this point with the recent reveal, with us finding out that Terry was Zodiac the whole time. But also what's interesting at this point is how Jed MacKay tells us more about Mark Spector by shining a light on other characters. And it's very subtle yet clever and effective. So let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week. And don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so at this point with us getting the reveal that this whole time Mark's secret nemesis had been hanging around the Midnight Mission all along, just going by the name of Terry and more or less just creating this innocent identity, really just as one part of his bigger plan to break Moon Knight in order to make him better. And when this happened, we also got the reveal that this was actually Zodiac the whole time, to where in his case, from what we know about Zodiac, he'll find a problem with somebody and then just chalk up some elaborate plan, which likely will leave a ton of bodies in his wake, much like we'd seen in Dark Reign. To where at that time he expressed his mantra, which in his words was, quote, cause enough chaos in the world and there's room to do anything, end quote. Because for Zodiac, it's always been his thing to test boundaries by using extreme violence, which before came in the form of killing 100 Hammer agents, hospitalizing Johnny Storm, and even at one point hacking into a decommissioned shield-based terminal in order to activate a program of Galactus getting ready to eat Earth that played out full scale in real time. So we know that he's capable of cranking things up to a crazy level if he so chooses. But this time around, with his sights on Moon Knight rather than Norman Osborn, he's put together what he would call his most recent project in order to test the faith of Moon Knight, as well as take all his money, destroy the Midnight Mission, and just do whatever he deems is necessary to break Mark's faith and push him to the next level. But also during this time while Zodiac is just kicking Moon Knight while he's down and just bringing the best out of him. We then go to Reese for a moment, who we had seen before Mark told her to leave the Midnight Mission when he had his suspicions about Soldier, and it's here we find Reese run into someone who she believes that can help, and I mean actually help, not like Zodiac help, because I don't think nobody wants that kind of help. But even with this project that Zodiac is using on Moon Knight, like with Mark injured from the explosion, Zodiac just goes to beating on him and telling him how proud he is of him at the same time, because so far he's passed all of Zodiac's tests. But in this moment, Mark believes that Zodiac is gonna beat him to death, and he doesn't care because he knows he'll come back, and he tells Zodiac when he does, he's gonna put him through a wood chipper. But for Zodiac, again, he doesn't want to kill Mark, but instead to further his experiment, Zodiac goes to kill Soldier instead to give Mark a bit of motivation. But before he can, Hunter's Moon shows up, catching Zodiac off guard, knocking the wind out of this guy, which then sends Zodiac flying into a parked car. And so now with this happening, I could be mistaken because I haven't looked at anything with Zodiac in a minute, but I'm pretty sure that this guy doesn't feel pain. Because when this happens, he does mention to Dr. Botter, or Hunter's Moon, that he almost felt that, so I think that's also kind of his thing. But if there's any diehard Zodiac fans out there, let me know in the comments. But when this happens, Zodiac just sets off another explosion so he can get up out of there, because again, triggering chaos in order to create opportunities, that's totally his thing. But just after this, Dr. Botter takes Mark back to his clinic in order to stitch him up and tend to his wounds, and this initially throws Mark off because it's the same guy who threw him off a building to only later then try to murder his friends. But for Dr. Botter at this point, it's not so much that he's had a change of heart, but instead because they're both fists of Khonshu, he considers Mark as his brother. So for that reason, he tends to his wounds, and as Mark kind of dozes off to rest, Dr. Botter then tells him a bit about his past and his journey, because for him, it helps him focus on his work and it keeps his hands steady. But also while Dr. Botter is going into story time, we then follow Mark as he's resting while also following the call of Khonshu. But even in this state while Mark is resting, he can still hear the voice of Dr. Botter while also responding to him, and Dr. Botter can hear him as well. But with him telling Mark this story about his past, it also gives us a bit of insight as far as why Dr. Botter is such a zealot for Khonshu, because it's here where he tells a story on how he was born in Luxor, Egypt. Both of his parents were doctors, so he followed that path as well. But all throughout his life and even through his childhood, he's just been a serious person. And it's an attribute that played in his favor as far as when he went to school, because he excelled in every subject. But unlike the people around him, Dr. Botter found himself missing something, because unlike his peers, he never felt the presence of God, or at least not like everyone else said that they did. And this caused concerns for him with this Islamic faith, because he would study the Quran and study Hadith like there were subjects from school, but he still couldn't make a spiritual connection, which over time he would also find very frustrating as well, because he had always been a rational person. So he always believed like if you do the correct steps, you should always get the same result, the right result. But before in his faith, he would never find himself achieving that on a spiritual level. But this all changed when he died, on a night when he was walking by himself, which is something he did a lot lot because he didn't connect with people that much, which is also something that didn't bother him. But on one night when he was walking alone, he was attacked by vampires who didn't just take a bite, but they drained his blood, leaving him for dead. And it was that night for Dr. Botter where he was resurrected by Khonshu, to where in his case Khonshu offered him divine purpose. And with hearing this, in a way it sounds similar to Mark's initial offer, but in Mark's case Khonshu appealed to Mark's desire to be violent, with offering Mark resurrection along with the opportunity to take action. But for Dr. Botter it was different, because in his case, with Khonshu offering him a divine purpose, it had seemed like the divine connection that Dr. Botter had been waiting for his whole life. But in either case, we know that Khonshu, being Khonshu, just saw them as an opportunity or as people in need who he thought would just be easy to control. But also during this time while Mark is following the voice of Khonshu, while also listening to Dr. Botter's story, and it's here where the doctor tells him that his problem with Mark was the fact that he had been given this gift or this opportunity, but instead of appreciating it, Mark had just thrown it away. And with hearing this, Mark asked Dr. Botter like, what changed? Like, if you feel this way, why are you doing all of this? And Dr. Botter lets him know that it was Reese, because when she came running to his door knowing that Mark needed help, she knew Dr. Botter hated vampires, and he could have just opened the door with a stake. But it was brave for her to even put her neck out there, even just for the possibility that he would help Mark. With her showing that bravery, it really challenged what Dr. Botter thought about vampires. Because up to this point, we've known he's been on some kill 'em all type stuff. And with us hearing his backstory, it's pretty obvious why. And even though now he has the same feeling as far as wanting Mark to fall in line as a fist of Khonshu, but as far as Dr. Botter's hate for vampires, that's something at this point that he's really reconsidering. And I'm sure at this point he still hates most of them, but at least now he's aware that not all of them are the same. But at this point with Mark making his way to Khonshu, he finds him for a brief moment and Khonshu tells him, "My son, I miss you, pay me a visit soon." To where then, Mark just awakens shortly after. And when he does, Dr. Botter lets him know that his friends have come, they're waiting outside, and he hands Mark his white suit. But before Mark leaves, Dr. Botter reminds him that he's not quite sure as far as what he thinks of Mark and how he's handling his position as a fist, but regardless, they are brothers. So after this, when Mark steps outside, he's met by Tigra and Reese, and they go to make their way back to what's left of the Midnight Mission. But with them seeing that Mark is okay, he quickly gives Reese props for going on that suicide run to go get help. But also in the case of Reese, who's still kind of dealing with the shock of Terry pulling the flip-flop and being Zodiac the whole time. But like for her, in this point of her life, or afterlife, where she's just been turned into a vampire, like one of the first friends that she made happened to be somebody who was made up, and she admits that it hurts. But then from here, Tigra, she asks Mark what's next, and Mark's like he's not changing nothing. He's got his people to protect, not to mention he made a promise to Zodiac, which I think had something to do with a wood chipper. But when they get back, Soldier, he's waiting by the door, and he lets Mark know, like sure, he has a sketchy past, with like the Hydra photos that leaked and all that, but with him saving Soldier's life twice, and his mom, he lets him know that he's his guy from here on out now, for life. And I'm sure Soldier said something similar to that to Hydra at one point. I'm not letting that go. But I also want to point out here, like it's here with Mark in his Mr. Knight attire. To where at this point, everyone from the Midnight Mission and everyone outside, they're addressing him as Mr. Knight. But it's here where he walks into what's left of the Midnight Mission, where Reese asks him what is he gonna do now with the place destroyed and Zodiac nowhere to be found. And in response, he tells her, after telling her in the previous issue to address him as Mr. Knight, but now he tells her, I'm Moon Knight and I'm not going anywhere. Which on the surface seems like Mark tapping back into the Defender like we talked about with the first issue. But also it seems like a subtle reminder to the previous observations made by Dr. Sturman when she had mentioned the possibilities of Mark approaching another transformation. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below so you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.